Every Jalen Duren update gives us one more breadcrumb to this insane puzzle where it seems like every single update gives us just a tiny piece of information, and all of these informational pieces are leading to the bigger picture for Jalen Duren. We get an update from Marc Stein, one of the most decorated reporters, at least in the media, that I've seen cover the Jalen Duren saga so far. We've seen Jake Fisher. We've seen Evan Sittery. And with those sources we talked about yesterday, this is kind of a different animal. We're talking about a completely different kind of vibe going into this contract discussion for Detroit. He does talk about how they've only made modest progress. And to me, when I think of modest progress, it hasn't been much. Does that mean it's been negative? Potentially. We did have that ugly start to free agency where Jalen Duren wanted out. Marvin, what's up, man? Thank you for joining. But we did hear about Jalen Duren wanting out, wanting to go to the Sacramento Kings, wanting to go to Boston, wanting to go to all these different places, meeting with the Lakers. None of that materialized. And so now I feel like they're kind of trying to figure this out together, because at the bottom, it does talk about him potentially accepting that qualifying offer. I just don't think that's realistic for any party. For Detroit, it doesn't make sense. You get a guy on a one-year deal, no trade clause, in a locker room where you are trying to build up off of what you did this past year. For Jalen Duren, an injury happens or you repeat that playoff performance, and it's absolutely downhill from there, talking about what kind of contract he's looking for next year, because think about what teams are actually available then, and that's something we might actually do a little bit later. Welcome. This is the Monday tip, and for us, this is kind of just going over all things Detroit, and I'm trying not to pigeonhole myself into one single topic, especially this Jalen Duren update, because there's so much news with this Jalen Duren saga where a lot of them don't give us too much information to continue making educated guesses on what can happen. And I don't think there's been too much insane, valuable little pieces of information that come to us. So when we're talking about what we can realistically talk about today, we're going to be talking about how Detroit can still rule the Eastern Conference no matter what happens. But I want to keep talking about this Jalen Duren topic. If you are Detroit, what is the point in turning down the opportunity for a sign-in trade? And that's a question where I kind of know the answer. If you're in the comments, welcome in. Where are you listening from? What do you think is going to happen with this Jalen Duren saga? How is this going to end? When is it going to end? It can end October 1st, all the way up until then. When we're talking about realistically, what is the outlook for what can happen now? There's a few different directions it can go, and we've talked about them all to death. He stays, he goes, or he stays and he's not happy. Realistically, he's going to be here for a while. We touched on this at the end of a couple days ago's live stream, that this is a contract where if you get that big number, if you get that $40 million, if you get that $35, you get that even $44 max for him, at least the max another team could give him, that gives you a tradable salary that you're able to then aggregate once you get to, I believe, December. You don't get that no trade clause like you do on the qualifying offer. Okay. First up, we're going to get to the film room real quick, because what we saw from Jalen Duren, if you're in the stream and you saw this a little bit earlier, you're kind of seeing some similar stuff. Because the Jalen Duren we saw for the Detroit Pistons in the NBA playoffs was not the same Jalen Duren we saw in the season. And we've gone a little bit too far by saying he doesn't deserve $20 million. He doesn't deserve $35 million. Billy Bands, I don't think there's no way they're getting him up to 45, 44. I'm trying to think, like, what are they realistically going to do? Because if he literally says 44 or I'm going to take the qualifying, what do you do? It just feels like a year down the drain where you just have to let this ride out, because you then get a player in the locker room that's going to try to play for his money and he's not necessarily playing for the team at that point. It's just a really bad situation for everybody. Really bad. And so I'm hoping that they can come together on like a $40 million. But yeah, going back to the film, Jalen Duren in February of this year had a dominant performance against Cleveland, who he'd eventually play in the playoffs, eventually lose to, and he'd eventually have a god-awful series against. And the things we saw in February, if he would have played this way in the playoffs, nobody would have an issue paying him $44 million, $44 million a year. But the thing is, we didn't see those things. And I'm just going to show a little bit of leverage over the defender. And when you have a guy who can play make like that, there's no issue. There's no issue. If he plays like this all season, you're paying him 44, you're paying him 45, because he is that option next to CADE that could have a good defensive play. But still, to me, with Jalen Duren, how can up here? Thank you guys for joining so far. If you are in here, what we're talking about is the Marc Stein update that we got today. And I want to come clean a little bit, too, because if you look at my stream 2 days ago, you look at the thumbnail, it's talking about how is he going back to Detroit ASAP. Did I think that was the case? Yes. Jake Fisher's a reporter that I actually do believe in. He did have his misses early on in his career, but it's one of those scenarios where working with Marc Stein, someone that I do trust, who has a lot of intel around the league, and he's a reliable source, I come to trust that because he probably fact-checked that with his guy, Marc. When we're talking about this Marc update, though, it's different. The other one said they were progressing. There's no talks of a sign and trade. There's no talks of a qualifying offer. And we can see here that some of the info here is very similar in terms of there's not going to be a sign and trade. Detroit has brushed off all of those options, and there is the option for the qualifying offer. So like I mentioned, the mention of the qualifying offer is not because it's realistically going to happen. It's because that is just an option that could happen. So if you're looking at an A option, B option, A option, they come together on a deal, B option signs the qualifying offer. It's like A is like a 95, 96% chance, where maybe even higher. That B option, that qualifying offer, is just so low because it's so rare. And the last successful, I would say, player to turn down an offer and move their way to getting a max contract was former Piston Greg Monroe. Thugway Joe, welcome. What up, Doe? For Detroit. We do have a comment from Marv. At this point, the Pistons need to join the market for Gafford as a plan B. Trade for him while keeping Duren and B-Ball Paul. Yeah, the one issue I would say, I feel like if you do go for Gafford, that's a big middle finger to JD. And you might say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a middle finger, whatever. The rotation with those two is quite interesting because you only have so minutes to go around. But I would say if I was Detroit, you go get him, and then you say to JD, earn your money, we'll pay you. But that's kind of what they did this past year. So I love the idea of getting Gafford, but I think that slams the door on Jalen Duren because I don't think you're going to be able to sign and trade, so you're going to have to deal with it for a year. You're going to have to deal with that competition. B-Ball Paul went through that year as a valuable reserve. Then goes to the playoffs. He dominated. I'm going to say that he dominated. He won a couple games for us against Cleveland, being able to go out there over Isaiah Stewart in his offensive creation game. It was insane. And then his defense, too, wasn't bad. So when you're talking about B-Ball Paul, then, what does that say to him? Because there's not a sign and trade option that's going to happen. There's nothing realistic that's going to make money work because Detroit doesn't want to sacrifice flexibility. Like Sacramento, they want to get rid of Sabonis, but we don't want Sabonis. We don't want to take on that contract. We don't want to have that fit. So then it's basically he's either staying for a long-term deal or he's staying qualifying. But I see what you're saying, though. Like Gafford would be that plan. It would just make sense. Gafford would be a quality backup. B-Ball can play the power forward. That's also true because what we're seeing from this rotation is you don't have enough at the 4, and we're talking about Ron Holland getting meaningful minutes at that spot, and I don't actually like that. I don't like having Ron Holland in those talks. I want him to be a 3, a 2, mostly a 3. Okay. Idiot overreaction sports report. Max Christie and Gafford for Duren. And that's a situation where when you're talking about surrounding Cooper Flagg with players that could benefit him and growing as an on-ball player as well, Jalen Duren would be a good fit. But my thing, though, is getting rid of Gafford get it. You bring in Duren, but I feel like Duren gives you kind of what you want from Gafford, but adds defense for a little bit of a less creation game on offense. Let him play for the QO. Let him walk. That's just tough because I feel like that throws the year down the drain. But I can see where some people just don't want to. Like, do you throw the year down the drain or do you throw the next 5 by giving them that crazy deal? Or I guess 4 if that's what they offer. You have size, but also plan B if he decides to leave. Yeah, Gafford's just one of those quality rotation pieces where I wouldn't be mad if they just went out and grabbed him. Collins can play small ball 5. Yes, John Collins 5-ball minutes are what I'm going to live for this year. Last stream, and tell me if you don't want to watch more John Collins film, because I absolutely loved that and kind of seeing what he could bring to this Detroit Pistons offense with CADE Cunningham. And it feels like we're going back a little bit to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, but every single update gives you a little nugget, but it almost feels like 2 steps forward. Well, I guess it would be 1 step forward, 2 steps back is the saying. And that's what's happening. Because this, we're getting that they're getting modest progress, but the other one is like they're working towards a deal. It's going to happen. I guess the only kind of continuating fact here, I just made up a word, I think, is that there's not going to be a sign and trade. Detroit's just not going to do it. But honestly, what do we know? They're putting that report out. He could be in the DMs of any other GM in the league, any other POBO, president of basketball operations, figuring something out as we speak, and we could get that alert right now. If you're in the stream, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you let me know where you're watching from, because especially the like button, that kind of pushes it out to more Pistons fans. Keep this conversation going. You guys are what make these streams. Like, if it wasn't for you guys, I would be talking, and then I would be done with my video, and I'd splice it up. But having these comments kind of give more content, gets you guys involved, gets me thinking a lot too, especially the Gafford deal. I don't think I've thought enough about how that could actually impact Detroit. Okay. What I wanted to do for a little bit here is I wanted to go through this Eastern Conference, because when people talk about who is going to dominate the East this year, I think there's the easy contenders. You talk about the Raptors, even though that Kawhi stuff isn't ending soon. They talk about Boston. They talk about Philly. They talk about Cleveland. They talk about the Pacers. They talk about, even the Magic and Heat. Well, obviously the Heat, but sometimes the Magic over Detroit. And there's been so many instances where I've just been absolutely dumbfounded reading like accredited reporters, accredited beat writers, accredited just anybody across the board making media, and then absolutely putting Detroit low on the totem pole, where they're built for this long-lasting regular season success. Nobody's questioning if they're going to be able to continue the regular season success. I don't think I am. And if you are, that's okay. I'm genuinely not. They're going to be a good regular season team. They're coached well. They have the superstar CADE Cunningham. They have Asar Thompson, the superstar defender. That means to this team, Asar to Detroit means the same as what CADE means to Detroit, just about. And that's not belittling what CADE does. I think that's propping up more what Asar does. Duren and Kyrie. Not if it's a successful year. Easiest positions to plug and play is a PNR center who gives 60 to 70% effort consistently. Yeah. Do you say Duren for Kyrie? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about the fit with Duren with Coop? Just making it work in Dallas. I'm just going to come out here and say that when we're talking about the Eastern Conference, there's not really a team that scares me in the regular season to kind of dethrone Detroit as that 1 seed. I think when we're breaking down some of these rosters, like I look at Philly and looking at the depth chart, and you can look at all these depth charts. These teams are just not made for the regular season. Because Quentin Grimes, he's not even here. Isn't he a Laker? Yeah, he's a Laker, so that shouldn't even be there. I don't even know. This might have been from last year. I'm assuming this is from last year. Let's see. That was the same. I'm pretty sure this was the same link I saw. Oh, I guess we'll just see it this way. Go to Boston real quick. I think, no, this isn't even updated because you have Jaylen Brown. Well, that's really irritating. So I apologize for wasting your time looking for this stuff. July. Either way, we don't need to look at the depth charts to talk about this. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Grimes is a Laker. Jaylen Brown definitely still isn't a Celtic. With some of these teams, they're just not built for this regular season grind. Philly, they don't have the shooting to consistently come back in these games. Like, yes, you have VJ. Yes, you have Tyrese. I do feel like if you get LeBron as well, that pushes a shooter potentially out of the lineup. You have Embiid, plays not a lot. Jaylen Brown, good three-point shooter, but I want to see what he can do kind of in a different system. I do think Boston has been very kind to him as a player. I'm not talking down at all about what he can do, but it's just a different animal when you're talking about regular season Philly. I'm excited for some of those Jaylen Brown reports that we get about how his regular season is going and about how he loves the fan base. We saw Tobias, one of the most likable players in the NBA, and obviously he's had his issues on the court, but just never a fan. He didn't have fans in Philly. They hated that guy. And then he came to Detroit and absolutely righted the ship. Pistons need more size and rim protection. We have a small ball team with strength. We don't have length of height on our front line. And that's the thing, because when we're talking about even Isaiah Stewart, you don't get the height. And he didn't even have a vertical. Like, I was surprised he dunked as much as he did. Whenever he caught a lob, it was like a spectacle for me. It was like, whoa! Like, absolutely out of my seat moment. And so that's where I do think we need one more player that's at least 6'10". Yes, you can play John Collins, probably your second tallest player at the 5. But the defense necessarily isn't there, and we haven't seen it. Can that change? Maybe. Another big man shot blocker would be good. I really do think at the 53rd pick, Detroit picked the big man, Onyenso. I'm almost positive they picked him thinking that maybe he could be a specialist and play a little bit right away. And not necessarily getting 20 minutes a night, but could you put him in? Maybe not every night, but as a two-way, put him in, he'd be fine. But absolutely thinking about, sorry for the backtrack there, but thinking about Summer League, I don't think he's going to touch a minute at the NBA level this year unless there's catastrophic injuries across the board. And I think even in that circumstance, they would probably sign some people. Okay. Yeah, we're against longer front lines. Giannis and Bam is one of the most terrifying things for a front line, for a team with gravity that depends on CADE, Ibuka getting to the rim, Jalen Duren inside. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily worried about their shooting. Davion Mitchell, he's fine. Wiggins, nope. Giannis, nope. Bam, nope. So what else are you filling that lineup with? When you have Detroit that can easily get out of ruts, get out of holes. They can easily create a big lead with their three-point shot creation that they have on this team. Tolu Smith going to get minutes. I agree with that one, too. You're going to get 10 minutes max. Yes, 10 minutes. I'm going to put that there, like 10.5 over-under. What do you guys think? Top 4 teams in the East: Pistons, Knicks, Sixers, Hawks, Cavs. Yeah, I would say Pistons are there. Just regular season. Am I saying they're the best team in the East? Oh, God, no. I think I see what some of the other teams have done that are built for playoff basketball. If the Heat add LeBron, watch out. Yeah, that would be a scary lineup. I think when you're putting Davion, Wiggs, Bron, Giannis, Bam. But I do also worry, about the shooting. Bron, as he gets older, he's just becoming a better and better shooter. I'd like to look at some of those splits because he might have had a down year pretty recently. But Miami, that team would be built for the grind of the playoffs. But I do think if they're going against like a shooting team, they could be in trouble. Because like I said, if you have players that can hit the 3-ball, if you have players that can consistently get open off screens, like having a Duncan Robinson, Isaiah Joe, and I'm not trying to say that puts us over Miami, but it makes it so we can easily get out of some of those holes that we could get in. Looking at LeBron, I got rid of this. Let me put this back on the screen real quick. Okay. Let's see. zoom this up a little bit. Okay. Let's go here. 3-point percentage, 31 this past year on 5 attempts, 37, 41, 32. So it just kind of feels like he's putting up the very similar volume, but it's just around that early 30s, which I'm not going to say is bad, like not at all. But when you're looking at a I pulled that up to get the chat up here. But when you're the best shooter potentially in your lineup, I think that's when you can worry a little bit. I did want to look up Davion Mitchell as well. Some of you might know this stuff. I feel like my brain doesn't process some of these random teams' percentages so often. Yeah, he shoots about 40%. 2 years ago, he shot 44%. So I wouldn't be worried about like a Davion Mitchell in the lineup. I think that it's more of a outside of Dave, what do you got? What do you got to do in the shooting department? Okay, let's see. You're going to need more polish. Yep. Totally should get minutes. I already saw that one. My bad. Reggie season, playoffs with current Duren Pistons are burnt toast. Yeah. I just think that, and we can talk about Jalen Duren all day, about how I believe that he's going to be earning the money he gets, that I think is up to $40 million. But I just need to see a playoff run to actually be bought in. Question, is a short-term deal possible for Duren? Maybe not the exact money he wants, but take what's available now and hit the market again. That's something we see from a lot of these older players. I'm not necessarily sure if I've seen that from a young guy, but I think this would be a confirmation that he definitely wants out. I think you'd have almost similar concerns of what we talked about with if he accepts the qualifying. Obviously, very different scenario, but then you're worrying about a player that's playing for the next contract over the next 2 years, not necessarily playing for the team. And I feel like, but also that gives you the situation to be able to then move them. It's more manageable. The issue, I mean, it always comes down to like, now that Detroit kind of knows what he is, at least from what we've heard about his personality and wanting the money over the win. I just don't know if he's super long for Detroit. And I actually reached out to Jalen Duren's agent. And I don't know if I'm going to get a response. I probably won't. But my biggest thing is, like, if we're not getting the info, like, I'm just going to try to reach out to as many people as I can that could potentially give us something. Because my goal for this channel is never to talk about, I don't want it to be like, oh, this is the news report I saw on Twitter today. Let's talk about it. Like, I want to have other scoops that we can then discuss amongst us. And it's not like for engagement, for likes, for a following. It's literally just because there's so much misinformation, especially with the Jalen Duren thing. Like, I mean, I've heard that he would take $40 million, but I've also heard from other people that he wants the max. And I think that there's just so much in between there that how do two people that I really trust the credibility of come to the determination that it's just so far apart? And I was watching a video yesterday where it's talking about sources, all that, talking about leaks, talking about information, and even if there's two very conflicting pieces of info, they both can be true. You just have to figure out what's benefiting the party. One thing I've thought about with this Jalen Duren information is that how much of this negative information is also coming from Detroit? Because we've heard from Chris Haynes, close to Duren's camp, talk about wanting to be with the Kings, wanting to go to the Celtics. But I'm curious if any of the info came out of Detroit's camp in Detroit's front office. Different situation. Mookie Betts 5 years ago when he got traded to the Dodgers, there was a lot of information about that, about if Boston was kind of angling for him to be a bad guy if he didn't accept it. It was either accept it, you're a hero, you're going to be here for your career, or go somewhere else, get a trade, don't want to be here, don't do an extension, you're gone, you're a villain. And I think right off the bat, a lot of people got on Betts, and we're just kind of thinking, I just remember the situation being so crappy for him, just most hated guy going to the Dodgers, like in LA. But then everything after that, like you hear from him, he's true to a story that he wanted to be a Red Sox for the rest of his life. He wanted to be there for the rest of his career. And so that kind of just sets up the scenario of how much pull did Boston have in the media to make it so it was not bad. Like, oh, they got rid of him, they're cheap, versus they got rid of him, he wanted to go, if that made sense. Good stuff. Like, you're taking initiative to at least reach out. That's the biggest thing, because then I can at least say I tried. It's more than some other people can do, and that's my goal. Okay. Appreciate that comment. Only issue I see is CADE getting disjointed with the turnover of players once considered core. Stu, Ivy, Duren. One thing I found out today, Jalen Duren and CADE Cunningham went to high school together at Monteverde Academy. So, because they were only a draft class apart, and I was looking, because I just saw a picture of Jalen Duren. I'm going to pull this up real quick. We're going to go to the film room. I'm going to pull up this window. Let's see this real quick. We have some people in here. Make sure if you're in here, you are hitting that like button. You're subscribing. Okay. Jalen Duren, Montverde with CADE. They didn't play together because CADE was on that 1920 team. Duren joined the program in 2021. But they did overlap at the academy. Oh, wait. Their high school timeline's missing each other. Oh, there we go. Yes, because in the high school realm, they didn't. Trying to see if there's a comment here. In the high school realm, they just didn't overlap. But I'm also curious, because I don't always like to just trust AI, because this is a Gemini. We're going to go through here. Let's see. But at least it was a year apart, so they had to overlap in some sort of way. I know but the thing with JD is he wasn't on the same roster. So I don't know how they do it there. And that's something I put out there without too much research. So don't go out there and say, like, yeah, Ledgie Sports Peak said that. I want to do more research on that topic, but I thought it would be at least something to bring up. All that being said, someone was talking about CADE being disjointed. Like, Jalen Duren is CADE Cunningham's best friend. That is something that has been true from the moment JD stepped into Detroit. You look at the offseason, CADE Cunningham and Jalen Duren, they were travel buddies. Like, there was a picture of them in Rome. Let me find this. CADE and Duren in, was it Rome? They were like traveling the world together. A Roman holiday bonded CADE Cunningham and Jalen Duren. Let's pull this up. Okay. They spent their time in Colorado and Dallas. The Rome excursion was on another level. Let me go through. Let me get this all fixed up. And this is what I mean when I say, like, they were best friends. They were making it work because they thought they had a duo that was going to be able to bring Detroit to the next level. If you're in the chat, I appreciate y'all being here. CADE needs a new best friend. Okay. There was a picture. Here it is. That's not Jalen. I thought the first picture was going to be, like, you know, of the duo. So I don't think that's in Rome. Let's see. That might be in Rome. I have no clue. I just see a basketball court. Oh, that's not Rome. Let's see. Okay, where's the picture? Where is this picture? That wasn't Jalen Duren. I'm in for some trouble here looking up Google Images. Here we go. Google Images on a live stream. Here's the picture. Oh my gosh, can I get this? Oh, on Reddit. That's awesome. So, yeah, I am, like, illiterate, I guess, when it comes to this live streaming thing. Like, I was like, oh, this one will be easy looking this up. Beasley was on that trip. Ron is CADE's new BFF. Asar is in that role, I think, because there's an image of CADE and Asar working out in the summer. We're going to go back to here for a minute while I do a little bit more research. But Ron, though, I mean, from that, was it the Dallas area? Both grew up. And there's a picture of them together when they were younger. And it's just one of those, like, full circle moments when you're like, is this all decided, like, a long time ago? There's Ron. There's CADE. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not like a big conspiracy theory guy, but it's like, was he destined to be on the Pistons and play with Cade Cunningham? Was this like a written in the script? Because I feel like you see too many of these. Or like when an NBA player, when they were a kid, has a shirt or a jersey. Jokic, doesn't he have like a baby picture in a Nuggets jersey? It's like it's that kind of stuff. If somebody can find that, I'm going to look it up real quick. We're going to go here. But this is talking about, and we've gotten a little bit off track. We've gotten very off track. Here we are. Nikola Jokic in a Nuggets jersey. Because how does that happen? How does that even happen? Because it's like, yeah, why isn't he wearing like a Lakers? I feel like national, worldwide. Kristaps Porzingis also, wasn't he a big Carmelo fan? I know he didn't play for the Nuggets, but didn't he get braids? I saw one picture of him with braids. Donovan Mitchell had a Cavs jersey. There we go. What are we doing? We're off track. Sorry, the camera's a little bit laggy. Let's see here. Where are we going here? Okay. Back to what we were talking about on the Monday tip-off. These comments have been great. Like, you guys are what makes this stream. There's new people in here. Join in the banter. Darko had a Pistons jersey. I can see that. Stu should have retired a Piston over Duren. Glad they got Collins out of the deal. Thing with Stu, and we talked about this last live stream as well, was Stu wanted out. He wanted a bigger role. It was like a mutual decision. We talked already about how he got heated with the coaching staff, and we can talk about that so many times before it's just a broken record. But he wanted a bigger role, and people want to say like it. I don't want to say people want to say like make it sound like it's a bad thing that people say that, but I think a big thing is about Stu being a culture guy. He is a Detroit lifer, and I do think that he helped turn this franchise back into what their glory days are. I also think with Stu, you don't know people behind the scenes. I'd love to think I know Isaiah Stewart. I named my dog Beef Stew after him, and we call him Stewart. So whenever I call the vet, I have to say his name is Beef Stew. But we don't know these NBA players. Like, how many of them actually are how they present themselves, and how much of that is media, how much of that is agents, what they want out there, social media being fake. And I mean, if I was an NBA player, I probably would do the same thing. I would try to be the most liked. I would try to fit into the culture. I'd try to do all these different things. But I mean, I could probably talk to an NBA player and they'd be like, dude, what are you talking about? Obviously, I am just a dad. I am just a teacher. I saw a comment up here I wanted to talk about. He should have had a bigger role again. Duren impact. That's true. When you're looking at these past playoffs and what Jalen Duren gave you, you could have had a two-man unit more of, I guess, a rotation of Stu and Paul Reed, and I think that would have gotten it done. There were the injury concerns with Stu. After that, I think it was a 7 or 8 block game against Orlando. Just wasn't the same. Couldn't get that lift off. And as much as people want to say he wasn't hurt, I think that's just unrealistic. Let's see. We've getting a few followers tonight. So, question. This is more of like an engagement question for you guys who are watching here. If you guys join the streams, if you guys join the just uploads I make, or the live streams cut up if you watch them after the fact as well, what are things you enjoy? What are things that I could do different? Like, what do you like about these streams? What do you not like? I just want to be as transparent with this as possible. I just want to make sure that I'm giving you guys stuff that you enjoy. But going back to this Marc Stein update, what could be the news tomorrow? And I think that's something that we could realistically talk about. I feel like every day, every 2 days, we get a small nugget. And you might say all these updates are inconsequential. They're not that big. They're just small. They're not really big, grand updates that are going to be worth a viral video, worth a live stream every day. But I think when they all add together, that's when you get a bigger picture. Like we went from he wanted out to slowly like he's going to be in Detroit. And I think every confirmation we've gotten about no sign and trade, I think that's the closest thing we're getting to. Dwayne Casey lied to us. These two young men are going to be here for a very long time. Comments on Stu and Duren. To be told on Duren, Stu, that one's a bummer. And I love my old coach, Dwayne Casey. He was not my coach. I don't know why I said mine. One other thing I wanted to talk about, especially talking about the new front office when you have Langdon, is when he came in, the core was already built. You had Stu. You had CADE. You had a collection of assets that us as Detroit fans called the core because that's what we were told. Slowly but surely, Trajan Langdon has morphed the team into what he's wanted it to look like. And don't get me wrong. I do love the core players that we had. But we're going to a different angle because I really do believe that Trajan Langdon is kind of moving away from a clearly like total defensive mindset. I feel like with Troy Weaver, a lot of those rotations, lineups, acquisitions, they didn't make sense for what the NBA was moving towards. I think that Langdon is much, and I do believe he's still defensive first mindset. I think that's Detroit. I think that's what you need to do. That's why you have JB Bickerstaff here. But I do believe he's transitioning, subbing out some of that defensive ability all around, like getting rid of a Stu. Even Sasser, I would say, was a decent defender, and bringing in offensive shooters and players. I mean, in 2 years, bringing in Isaiah Joe, Duncan Robinson, John Collins. That's just a few names. There's got to be more here too. But the players he's bringing in is kind of like a renaissance in Detroit, not just kind of going all in on defense like we've seen in the past couple years. I would have felt better if Stu was used in a bigger trade. Yeah, I would have too. I feel like Detroit would have as well. But, I mean, I feel like they had something set up. I don't think they thought this Jalen Duren nonsense was going to happen or at least continually be going on as it is today. Coach Casey needs to get with DeRozan. See, DeMar DeRozan is one of those players nobody I've seen, especially on like the X space in terms of just like bigger creators, say that they want him to be on the Detroit Pistons because he can't shoot. That's such a minimal thing because the only realistic way you get him is on that vet minimum. So you're not going to be paying him $1 million, like I was going to say $1 million because that's a lot of money to us, to me, not to these guys. But you wouldn't have to pay him $20 million to be here in Detroit. You'd be paying him. What's that vet min for him? Is it like 4 or 7? Somewhere in that range. But you're not paying him that money to come in and be the ultimate shot chucker. You're not bringing him in to be, I don't know, with the money you're bringing him in for, the value he brings is going to be nice. If that made sense. That was a long-winded DeMar DeRozan chat. But I don't know. He's not expensive. If it doesn't work out, you waive him at the like before the deadline because you don't need that. But if it works out, cool. You have one of those players that's going to help you through a playoff run when you need that kind of self-creation scoring, that more of that rim pressure when CADE can be on that three-point line. Ibuka can be on that three-point line. Not Sass. I was just talking about it, but Isaiah Joe and Duncan Robinson. Detroit needs to pack up Ron Holland and picks for Murphy. I don't know. I was originally on that thought train for so long, and welcome in, Daniel. But for me, it's like, what if Trey Murphy just didn't work out or doesn't work out? You trade 3 picks, which is the demanded cost, and a Ron. Ron does well, and then they have 3 picks. What if they turn those 3 picks into just like an actual star? Where, I don't know, maybe I'm just lower on Trey Murphy than consensus, and I thought that a deal was going to get done, and I was excited, and when it didn't, I was actually pretty bummed. I was like, oh, the offseason's over. But looking more into it, I mean, what is, like, I just feel like the impact from John Collins, it's so underrated. I feel like it's gone completely under the radar because I just feel like he's going to have a career here with Cade Cunningham. career year here with CADE. Can't shoot is insane considering his actual NBA track record. Is that talking about DeMar? Can't shoot. Sorry, maybe I said something I missed it, or that was for a different comment. Prince move is underrated. I agree. Marvin's in here with some fire right there, man. Can I put fire in the chat? I've seen some of that. Oh, confetti for Marvin. Yeah, just because with Taurean Prince, like, yes, he had that neck injury. I didn't think he was going to be able to play an NBA game again after that. But he came back, defied the odds, and actually put up a good end of the season. We plan our picks being 21 to 27, 28. That's a good risk. Yeah, I don't think that you're making the move with any consideration of it potentially being a top pick, and that's probably why there would potentially be protections in, at least like a top 3. Would the Pelicans do that? I mean, I feel like I would send 3 if they were protected top 5. Would they? I don't think so, because then what's the point? I've seen a lot of people talk about with Trey Murphy, why would you trade him when you're also trying to restart and become a good team? I don't know. I don't know why they would. The only thing I can think of is that, I mean, you're already going to be bad in that conference. You have your picks. You just continue to build. But it's like, if you can get that liquid asset of first-round picks, especially more than 2, you have to take that. And I just don't, there probably hasn't been an offer else that he would have gone for 3. Because I just think people undervalue the first-round pick in today's age. And I wish Troy Weaver worked a little bit harder for Detroit to get more of them. I feel like we've done a good job of acquiring seconds. And if Langdon would have went that route to get us first, we wouldn't have done what we did these past 2 years. So it's like, would you rather have 3 more first-round picks, potentially have 2 more bad contracts, and finished in the play-in both years? Or would you rather do what we did and pay in free agency, buy cheap for seconds, don't trade firsts, you have your own, but you don't get anything extra because you're not taking on bad assets? I'm happy where we're at because, I mean, if you're in the play-in, there's at least like the chance of like, okay, you have all these picks. What if you trade them and you only move up to the 6th seed? Well, you're Detroit now. Yes, you have less first-round picks to trade, but the trade-off is, you know, you were a first seed. You know you can do it. Dumars and Weaver are running back a 20-win team with a new coach. See, Jamal Mosley. I'm blank. Yes, Jamal Mosley. He's an underrated coach, and I thought Isaiah Stewart was going to be a prime pick because he got to see firsthand what Stu could bring in that first-round matchup. I can't believe what Orlando did to that man because Paolo, and I don't know if Franz had much to say, but, I mean, all the reports were a star player in Orlando actively was trying to get him fired when I don't think he was the issue because he was a dang good coach. Do you blame potentially more the GM for putting it all into Desmond Bane? Maybe. If the Magic come out and win next year, all of this is negated, and people will say that contract was or that trade was worth it. But at this point, that's what I feel like a Trey Murphy trade would be like. Is you pay all those assets, you get a Desmond Bane or a Trey Murphy in Detroit's case, and then an injury happens, then you're low. You're in the 6th seed, or I guess in the play-in, then you get bounced by the 1 seed. That's not a success for Orlando. And yes, you can say it's injuries. You had a Franz injury away from reaching that round 2, upsetting the 1st seed, but that's not what happened. So it's like you put Detroit in that shoes next year. Let's say Asar gets hurt for a stretch. You have Trey Murphy. You get in the play-in. You get bounced first round. Like, that would be brutal. You pay all those picks. You're still trying to figure out if the team can work. Other teams are still getting better. Those younger teams are getting better. I don't know. Maybe I'm just pessimistic in terms of Trey Murphy because I just think that if it goes wrong, that is potentially the end of Cade Cunningham in Detroit. Because if you move all those picks for Trey Murphy comes, it's a disaster. I think that speaks more to the value of Trey Murphy as a player So he instantly goes from 2 to 3 first-round picks to potentially 1. Then obviously there had to be a big injury. Let's say it's to Ausar. Yeah, you have CADE, but as the offensive powerhouse, Ausar Thompson is needed on that defensive end. So you lose Ausar, it's just an awful season, and you're down so much in terms of value. It's like dynasty football for me. Like, I've always had a team where it's like, I'm going to win it. I'm going to do good. And then midway through the year, I'm like, oh, crap, I'm bad. I'm going to do what I can to refinance. And then I went and got rid of all my first-round picks. It was a first-round bounce. Had nothing. And then I could have just kept going that route. But instead, what I did was absolutely blow it up, trading even like Ashton Genty, these young guys that are people like, don't trade. And now I have a great young team. I have 3 first-round picks in the 27 draft with all of these like insane prospects. And it's like I'm on the trend of becoming like a superpower team. So I don't know if that made sense in terms of that. I'm kind of just rambling at this point. But in terms of Trey Murphy, I guess I'm just a little bit more worried. Getting Murphy has no downside whatever. Sorry, can't read. Murphy has no downside whatsoever. CADE needs all the help he can get, not 2-3 years later. That's true, though, because like if you do something, it doesn't work, the CADE window's closer to being closed. If you don't do something, it's not going to work, the CADE window closes. So that actually makes sense. Murphy's the next level athlete. He may not fit now. If they lose a star, they're cooked in any scenario. Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the interesting things. And so all of that being said as well, I would rather just go out and pay for a tier up from a Trey Murphy. What that is, I'd love to see some suggestions in there. Like, a lot of people don't like the idea of a Kevin Durant, but I feel like, I don't know, could CADE be that Kevin Durant whisperer? I feel like CADE is just so chill that he would make it work. Gained a couple followers in the past few minutes, actually. Appreciate that. So make sure if you're in the chat, you're sending a like. You're hitting that subscribe button because we live stream pretty much every day. Sometimes we just do short live streams where we just talk about the news nugget. But something I've been trying to do more as we've been getting more followers, getting more comments, is just kind of hanging out, doing these talks, leaving the streams up. But normally, like when we first started doing the live streams, and there was maybe like 3 viewers, I would say my spiel, do a little conversation, split it up. But now we're to the point where we can start making these streams, and then we can, instead of clipping it, we can do this. And keep this and then clip some of these segments. Anybody, please, yes. Get somebody for CADE. I'm going to say John Collins. I think a lot of you, if you're not like on that hype train, like John Collins is going to get some all-star votes this year. Just from what I've watched analytically, looking at what he did with Trae Young, I feel like Cade Cunningham is just a better operator in terms of a overall team's offense, more off-ball. Okay. Another option could be Peyton Watson. I like Peyton Watson. I just feel like that maybe, I don't know. I feel like I was trying to be devil's advocate, but I don't think I can think of one because you could even play him at the 3, put Ausar to the 2, because he actually does shoot well. Peyton Watson. Let's go back to the film room. Okay. So, Peyton Watson, 41% from 3. 54 games played. I'm actually curious about the injury. I guess I didn't see what his injury was. But that volume is going to be very key here to see if like that's even like something I can even dream about. Yeah, I mean, he's gotten up to 4 attempts a game. I mean, I'm comfortable saying if you went up to 5, maybe you're down to like 36%, and I'm still okay with that because you're just going to get better. 6'8", and I feel like that's kind of a lot of what Detroit has right now, are 6'8" players. Cade's chill enough to recover losing his best friend forever for a finals appearance. Yeah, losing Jalen Duren, I think would be really hard. I mean, went through Team USA basketball. Both went through that Monteverde Academy 1 year after the other. Watson would be a dream. Ausar with offense. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, though, like the Ausar defense, like, it's truly generational. I don't think I've seen, and there's been some good defenders on this Pistons team, and there's been good defenders in Pistons history. He might, like, legit go up there with, like, Big Ben, Dennis Rodman as like the best defender, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the day he's number one. I just the things he can do, and and maybe I'm just young. A lot of you guys probably love Ben Wallace. But I just think Asar, just the specimen he is. But we'll have to see him locked down like a Shaq level defender before we get there. That was some heat there. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw like 6 viewers just pop out, see some dislikes, subscribers leave. Why do you think the Hero rumors cooled so fast? I think just going to Milwaukee, I think the Milwaukee asking price kind of changed a lot of that. I think before the trade was finalized, you could still have conversations with Miami and then other teams, and you could make other pieces fit. And it wasn't necessarily a mandate from Milwaukee on what you needed to give and what you would get, because you just had so many opportunities to make a trade work and make the money work, get different pieces, get different assets when you're talking about the multi-team idea. But once Tyler Hero went to Milwaukee, that kind of closed the door because there wasn't the optionality. At least I don't think they were going to operate and make another big trade. I just think that would have been too difficult. And I think Detroit didn't go down that avenue because then Milwaukee was the owner of Hero at that point. So then at that junction, they would have just asked for way too much. And Hero, Trey Murphy, I feel like I'd rather have Trey Murphy. I think the defense for Trey Murphy, even though it isn't great, he has the size. We've seen it. I think Hero, you do get the playmaking, on-ball creation for others. I mean, we saw some Tyler Hero PG a couple years, and I mean, it wasn't awful. They've done well. Asar may just be as bad on offense, though. Cancels out 100%. Yeah, on that Ben end. The thing with Asar, though, that transition offense, it's one of the best. One of the best I've seen on this team. And we live in transition because of our defense. It all works out really well. Okay. What are we sitting at? How long have we been in here? This is so different than like my traditional videos I do. That it's so about an hour. Yeah, I just want to leave the rest of the time. And that was kind of what I wanted to get through, what I wanted to talk through today. But, I mean, questions, conversations, ideas. In 4 years, I mean, let's say 2028. So let's say 2 years from now, is Cade Cunningham the best player, the best American player? Because if you look at the list, let's see, 2028. This is kind of branching into that Olympic team. Because I definitely feel like Cade Cunningham is going to be potentially the best American player. And you're going against definitely like a Cooper Flagg, Anthony Edwards. And, I mean, I'm not going to be mad if people want to put Ant or Coop above him. I just think they're special players. They all do things so differently. I'm just going to say, like, we can talk all day about who's the best player out of that group, but what about those three-man units in the offense that we will see in a Cade Cunningham, Anthony Edwards, Cooper Flagg rotation? And that's leaving out, like, Chet Holmgren, having people on the outside. That's leaving out, I mean, like, as much as we've been crapping on Jalen Duren and the media has been hating on him, he's built for kind of that Olympic-style basketball. I just think he would be nice. Asar, drawing attention, cuts, back screens. Yeah. And if you're saying, so Marv, if you're saying that about like Olympic basketball or just regular, I 100% agree no matter which what you're talking about here. Going to the film room again. Team USA locks, and this was 7 days ago. So this one is a nice Yahoo Sports article. Who's it by? Kurt Helen. Let's see. Oops. Okay. What's the word if I want to see like what accomplishments? Okay, he's a blogger. 2004, blogging for the Lakers. Oh, so he got to witness the Pistons' victory in 2004. point of a sports blog. Okay. So he seems like a lifer. It's not just like in it for the money, not just a media personality. He is somebody that writes for the love of the game. And blog writers, I love blog writers. I respect him so much. Brendan Sims, he's been on Ledgie Sports show when we did shows. I mean, it was last year with Sean Murphy, credentialed Pistons media member. We had a podcast where we would just talk for 30, 40 minutes. Those ones are still funny. Like, you should go back and check those out if you're just looking for something from a year ago in a time capsule. Yeah. Okay. I respect this guy. I think that this is going to be... I'm going to pull this chat out here real quick. There's 19 people in here, and I know we haven't been talking necessarily about the JD news, but it's like that just means a lot to me. Make sure you hit the like button, comment. Gets that pushed out there. Okay. What am I doing? Why am I looking at Peyton Watson? I was like, what am I talking about right now? Accolades. Wow, is that how far the thing is behind? Is that how far this stream is back? I wonder if I can change the latency. I definitely can. I don't know if I can now. I'll have to look at these settings because I definitely want to have more of like an active conversation with the chat with you guys. That's just what makes it like more fun for me, honestly. So I'm not just like talking to myself. Okay. No LeBron, no Curry, no Kevin Durant. Yeah, these guys are going to be old. I think if they wanted to be on it, they would. They would just kind of just be put there. Would that stink for some of these younger players that I would love to see make the team that probably deserve it as well? Yeah, but I mean, one more time of seeing like a Steph Curry, LeBron, KD trio, especially with some of these like Petersons of the world, Cooper Flags, Cades, Edwards. It would just be such a fun passing of the torch moment. So locks. And this is where I love this because there's so many people who go out of their way to just pretend like Cade Cunningham isn't a top NBA player. Onyx, I'm starting to feel some kind of way about the diva that Jalen Duren is becoming, not showing Pistons DNA. I appreciate him going to getting his money and doing what's best for him, but I do feel like this has just been weird. I blame the agents, or at least I think a lot of it's agent speak. But the thing is, like, you just never know. Like, I can blame agents. I just have no clue. It's just the easy thing to do. But, like, as, like, someone who wants to get more into kind of the reporting world as well, like, I even reached out to his agent because it's, like, it's so easy to just say, oh, it's the agent. But I reached out because I kind of want to try to make those relationships to kind of get info. And will he respond? Will he say no comment? Will he say the talks are going? Maybe, but maybe there's a little nugget in there. Okay. Team USA locks, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Tatum, Cade, Cooper, Bam. One of the names that I'm really shocked about is Brunson. I feel like Brunson should be kind of a for sure Team USA player. It's his if he wants it. I feel like the championship, just along with his style of play, fits really well with the Olympic setting. Okay. Not a surprise, Halliburton. When you do nothing and you get an A on the project. Cool. Okay. I want to post a roster question to a former Team USA member. He said Cooper Flag starts. Cade seems like a lock with his two-way play and his size. That's true. And I think Cade Cunningham's game, like I've been saying, is like just built for Olympic basketball. Halliburton's, I think, is too. But, I mean, if you look at Cade Cunningham, just like career history with Team USA, I mean, he played when he was a kid. He's been playing all this time. He's going to get his time. Question, which former Pistons player, any era in their prime, would make us a contender this year? I think if you really want to be realistic as well, like you could talk about any of the championship players we had. I feel like Grant Hill just kind of fits right next to Asar, right next to Duren with kind of that two-way. I think Sheed as well is a nice one in the modern NBA, playing kind of that too big, a little bit slower lineup that would probably hurt in transition. I think Dumars as well. I think Dumars would be a good pick just right next to Cade. One of the best defenders. Like Jordan said he was his best defender or the best defender he ever played against. I'd love to hear what you guys say about that. Yeah, I'm going to pin this comment. Can I do that? Is that a thing I can do? Oh, I almost put you in timeout. Okay. Pin message. Where does it go now that it's pinned? At the top. Nope. Where does it go? Here it is. Which former Pistons player in any era would make us contenders? For me, it cut it off. But if it didn't for you, make sure you comment on there. Okay. I also think it's his agent being out of the circle, or the cool circle loop. Okay. France. You have Vic. You have Bam, who could potentially be a lock. I think he is. I think Bam's a lock. Unless you get like someone in the next, in this draft class, the previous, or the one next year. If you get just an insane center prospect that's just going to absolutely light the defensive world on fire in the Olympic game, that has that overseas European style of defense already when they kind of are familiar with the game. Because Damian Lillard had that issue with his step backs, travels. There are all these different things. And it's just a whole different basketball game. There's just so much you have to learn that's just different. Okay, Chet, Jalen Johnson, Mobley. I think Mobley, duh. I feel like Mobley is like a lock to be the starting center. I feel like Mobley would be fun. I feel like Mobley and Chet would be a really fun 4-5. I feel like you're pretty young, so I could see Mobley being off the bench. I could see you putting Bam starting. But I think Mobley's height with Chet's height, that would be a fun counter for what they do in France. And you'd have size. If you want like CADE, Coop, or Edwards, Coop, Chet, Mobley, I'm probably forgetting a name. That would be a fun lineup. Okay. Some of these other names, I don't think I'm missing anybody. Scotty Barnes, that could be a nice 4. I feel like his playmaking and defense is good for the Olympic style as well. Just like before, Rasheed Wallace elevates the team. I can't lie. Makes sense. Chauncey, big shot would allow Cade to play at his pace, help turnovers, also giving another big shot maker. Yeah. I'm still sticking to Dumars. I feel like because he could also take the ball. I mean, he's not a point guard, but could he play? Yes. Could he pass the ball? Yes. And then you have the defense, the shooting, and then that creation aspect. I don't know. Dumars is probably one of my favorite Pistons all time. I just think that the style, he was kind of the most overlooked, I feel like, from those teams. Look at this. Okay, it's on the bubble. You have Jalen Duren, Walker Kessler. Anyone remember when Luka Doncic tried to get Jalen Duren a Slovenian passport to be able to play with him? He did the same thing with Jackson Hayes. So if we were to talk about just Pistons here, I mean, Cade, I think, is a lock. I'm really surprised you don't see like an Amen Thompson. Oh, I guess you see him down here in the wing. I feel like if you have Amen Thompson here, you need to put Amen up here in the guard spot. But I think Asar Thompson needs to be here as well. Those both are going to be tenacious, and I feel like that would just be a fun duo to have in Olympic play, especially in those grudge matches when it's all just defense. You put both of them in the offense. It's not going to be pretty, but can they run in that fast break? Oh, that would be fun. Grant Hill, yeah. That's where I kind of am too. Dumars, Grant Hill, that's a fun combo. Putting 100 in the chat. One thing I wanted to see real quick. I just wanted to scroll because what if there's a big update that we just saw? Oh, there was the one. Can't type. Luka. There was the one Luka update about them promising him a center. And we're going to fix this. Real quick. I think this is one of the most damning things when you're talking about Jalen Duren, where a lot of that restricted free agency talk was almost fake. I think that the Lakers knew that they were going to be able to get a Kessler and they were going to do whatever they could. Honestly, they just needed to sign and trade, and Utah was open to it when they put the number out. But it's just one of those things with JD where it's just the pull of Luka wasn't enough. And all of the reporting that we heard was that Luka Doncic adored Jalen Duren. He wanted him to be there. He tried to talk to him about being on the Slovenian national team somehow through some loophole. And, I mean, all of this is done, and now we get like legit reporting that Kessler was the number one target from day one. Jalen Duren was the backup plan that they knew probably wouldn't happen, and it felt like it almost felt like a situation where they were almost just playing JD to get him there, see the big city. Agency thing, agents talking to other agents, him going there, checking out other teams, figuring out what he's worth, them putting it in his head that he could be a max level center. They would pay him the max. That's what they said. You can say that when you're not actually going to do it. Like, that's easy to do. Like, I love tomatoes. No, I don't. I wouldn't put them on my burger, but I can say I do. NBA will make sure the Lakers will be okay. Yeah, I'm not worried about the Lakers. But the thing is, like, you look at the Spurs, you look at the Thunder, you look at the Timberwolves. There's so many good teams in that conference where, I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm out on Luka. I think that's just unfair. But I definitely think the defense and just the whining, the technicals, that's what gets to me, and that's why I love CADE, because if you put 100 fans, you just pulled fans off the streets, like NBA fans. Are they diehards? Sure, you can call them diehards. If you put them all in a room and you said, who would you take, Luka Doncic or Cade Cunningham? I bet you about like 80% would take Luka, and then that 20 would be like elite ball knowers and say, I'm taking Cade, that two-way ability. Yes, the turnovers are an issue, but the playmaking is a little further down. But I think on an offensive skill set level, it's a drop-off, but the defense absolutely makes up for it. If you were to put 30 NBA GMs in a room, I bet you would be more closer to 50-50 when you're talking about the player you have, the health history, and overall just kind of the attitude. That's where I'm at. I really feel like it would be a toss-up for a lot of those big-name GMs if they would want Cade or Luka. I don't know. Am I crazy to say that? Am I too much of a Pistons apologist? Okay. Let's see. Let's see what else there could be. Yeah. Paul Reed putting in off-season work. This is something that we all knew was going to happen, and that's where it's like I am so excited to see what he can do at that backup center level, because I loved what we saw from him throughout the playoffs, where he earned that role all by himself. Like, he went out there when they were just trying to see what sticks, and he was able to dominate that position, keep Stu away from minutes because of the offense. And that's where I feel like Langdon in the front office is moving towards that kind of offensive mindset, because when you have JB, could you tone down some from on like a player level on that defensive end? I think you could a little bit. But on the offensive level, like, they've added firepower. Like Collins and Joe alone coming in, that's bigger than a lot of us think. Like, a lot of us might say, oh, maybe like it's like a B, maybe a C off. I have it like an A, because just the ability on offense that these players have in a Cade Cunningham-led system. And if you get like 90% of Jalen Duren that you got in the regular season last year, yeah, I'm set. Like, that's beautiful. Okay, I'm pulling this up real quick. Career years for Collins and Joe. Collins, I see that 1,000,000%. We've talked about it. I made a video earlier today. Make sure you guys check that one out. It's all about, like, and it was also from the stream, so if you were in the last stream, you can check it out if you want to, I guess. But it was just a clip where we just talked about John Collins versus other power forwards. And then you'd put in, we'd see who were the highest paid power forward options. And about like $32 million and under, I would take John Collins just about over anybody. And the one I remember I was like very much against that mindset was Jaden McDaniels, just because I would pay him the max you could. Like, I would super max him to get him on this Detroit team. Question: y'all think B-Ball Paul will make us forget about Stu, or will Stu make us feel his loss with his new team? I think when you're talking about Isaiah Stewart versus Paul Reed, on most nights, you're going to see the defense a little bit be a little bit of a shell of itself. But I also think with JB Bickerstaff, he is the system. Stu's the culture. He was the setter. He set the culture, and these guys are just going to keep on moving with it. Like Ron, Asar, JD, he's going to be here. B-Ball, Paul. Like, these guys are all dogs. Like, they're going to be able to keep moving, and this train's not going to stop just because Stu left. If that was the case, Stu would be a max player. That's just the thing. Culture, like, it's such a big aspect of the game. Toby is. But I think it was a big aspect when our young guys were younger. I think Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson are at that level where, is it nice to have a lot of vets in the locker room? Like, yeah, you still do. But is it necessarily a necessity? I don't think so. And that's where Stu, especially in that culture regard, culture, it's going to hurt. And what J.B. Bickerstaff was able to do with funneling, especially with like what made Malik Beasley, Duncan Robinson, and all these other perimeter players that weren't necessarily great defenders, when Stu was on the court, you could almost have them funnel them in, and it would make the perimeter players look better because it would either end up with a Stu block, Stu heavy contest, or the player not going up and leading to some sort of late shot clock shot. I think with B-Ball Paul, we're going to see 100% effort 100% of the time because is he expiring? I'm not going to make my big point until I figure out what his contract is, and it can't be big. 2-year, $10 million. So yeah, one more year. Deals for the 22nd year. Yeah, second year's non-guaranteed. So with Paul Reed, you're getting a guy who absolutely is going to play his heart out every minute, every night. I just don't see a scenario where you put Paul Reed out there and then you have people questioning if he's putting it out there and he's actually benefiting. Or I guess helping the team. Okay, there was another question here. My bad. I got off track there a little bit. Joe can have a Beasley-type impact. I think so. I think we might have less. He might have less of a impact on the catch and shoot. I think Beasley was just like superhuman that year. But I think Joe's shot creation skill, it didn't scratch the surface when you were at when he was at OKC. There's a lot of film that we've watched on the streams. There's a lot of film that I've watched personally, and just like watching basketball. Like, he has a nice shot. He has a nice set of moves. He has a good toolbox, and he's able to kind of get to his spots. And there's points in the finals where it's like blowout games 2 years ago, even where he would just be doing like self-created step back threes, like middies off the screens and all of that. And it's a beautiful sight because I just think he's one of those, like, another underrated player that, I mean, it's such a huge impact when we're talking about how this team is going to look next year. And once we get to the playoffs, like, teams are going to say, how did Detroit get this loaded? How did they get John Collins and Isaiah Joe for that cheap? Like, that's going to happen. Who's going to stand up for Cade now? Ron is my answer. Ron will. I think John Collins will. I remember Duncan Robinson, something happened, he just walked away. He just didn't care about it. He was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. Joe running off screens will be the difference, 100%. And the thing is, if you're getting 30 minutes of if you're getting 30 minutes of Duncan Robinson running off screens all game, and then he checks out, and you're like, oh, phew, like I feel good, like as a defender, don't have to worry about that. And then Joe comes in like fully rested. It's like, oh, you're screwed. Like how is that just going to? How is that going to work? It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Those defenders are going to have such a hard time. And something in my house turned off. I don't know what it is. There's just a sound that's now gone. So now all I hear is myself. Very odd. B-Ball, Paul, and Collins. Twin. Yes, sir. I do think like this Detroit team is going to surprise a lot of people. It's just determined. And they're going to find a way to get back to where they were last year and then kind of complete that mission, complete that job. I just remember all throughout this year getting really upset when people were talking about the Pistons, like, oh, they're like just so much better than Orlando. They're just so much better than Cleveland. They're just so much better than all these various teams. When you look at the roster, it just didn't make sense. It didn't compute in my head, maybe because I'm still like a pessimist and was at that time. Because when you look at the construction of some of these teams just feel like they were built better and more well-rounded, but I just feel like CADE is that difference maker, man. Like, we got to the end of the year and people were like, oh, yeah, Cleveland's no match. Or I guess it would be Detroit's no match for Cleveland. Like, it's just going to be a slaughterhouse. Like, people had Detroit in 4, Detroit in 5. And for me, I was like, man, like, you still have Donovan Mitchell. Yes, James Harden's a playoff choker, but he's not like the lead option anymore. And even when you were in Philly, there was so much of that basketball that was in his hands, so much. But you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Mobley, you have all of these players. You have like even a Dean Wade, Max Strus, fantastic, like great players. I just felt like Cleveland was just built better and better for the playoffs. And I just got upset when people were like, oh, Detroit's like, they're just so overpowered. No. And then when we lost, people were shocked. And I mean, I was shocked. I thought we were going to keep moving, but I just think that people went a little bit too far the opposite direction. How are y'all enjoying our Monday night? Because I think there's 20 people in here. What time is it even? I have no clue. Can't even see my clock. 10:40. What do we got going on tomorrow, y'all? Tomorrow's Tuesday. I'm a teacher, so it's like it's summer vacation, and it's a lot of just time with my kids, which I've absolutely loved. And it's allowed me to open up a lot of time for this. And my wife works year-round. A lot of people do. And it's like, I give you all so much credit if you're those people, because I absolutely could not do that lifestyle anymore. I did it for a little bit. Was not for me. 440. Oh, what is HST? HST. I'm going to look this up, and by the time I type it all out, you're probably going to type it in. HST time. Oh, is that Hawaii? Hawaii Standard Time. Huh. It's like a little vacation. Hopefully I'm right. I could be dumb and you could say something completely opposite, but hopefully Duren signs tomorrow. I don't know. I wouldn't bet on that. I think if we were to kind of talk about when Duren is going to be back on this team, I think we're talking about closer to the start of the season. And who knows? Anything could happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if by tomorrow, you're right, he's signed. But this just feels like one of those situations that's going to be drawn out. And if you're Detroit, though, you need to get this figured out, because you have not much room until the salary, the tax line. And if you're that close to the tax line, you're going to have to start figuring out how to finish this roster, because you're going to be, I believe, one over the roster limit. And it's just about making that all work. And if you want to get somebody and you have somebody in mind that you need to get, you need to know what you're paying Jalen Duren. Okay. Camera's been lagging a bit tonight, so I apologize for that. Okay, this is where we're going to call the stream. We've been on for 79 minutes. We've gotten some good segments. We're going to make sure to clip some of it up. We're going to leave the full stream as is, so you can go back and see your comments in real time. If there's any questions you guys have, always comment on the videos. I love responding to those. That's like my favorite thing to do, and just seeing you guys take time, and I just really respect a lot of that. So just so appreciative. If you are in the stream and you had a good time, make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe so you can join back. We stream just about every night, and if we don't stream every night, we at least have a video posted. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, Jalen Duren, if you're watching, if you're one of the 14 viewers in here right now, JD, get it done, brother. Duren has to know by October 1st if he accepts the qualifying. And I don't know, the history of NBA holdouts is very slim, and it's never been good for the player. It's always led to devastation. So, okay. I appreciate you all. Like I said, you guys are what makes this happen, and I had fun. It's better than me just texting my friends 80 texts with no response. So I appreciate you all. We'll see you soon.